Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Falato. Today I'm coming to you from a brand new mansion that I purchased. Yeah, those who don't know, podcasters and editors for sports websites, we make a lot of money. So, no, just kidding. Obviously, I am poor, but I do have a virtual background on today because my God, this construction project, Nick, that has gone down in this house, it started in January, and the promise to us was it should take us a couple weeks to do a bathroom. First bathroom, 2 months. The second bathroom still ongoing. And now upstairs in the room where I normally record in and had my whole setup, they're putting in a kitchenette now. Don't know why. It's confusing. It's odd. I rent this place. Regardless, they just tossed all my stuff to the side, the microphone, the mixer, everything, this road, like legitimately. And I just had to pick it up out of there and reestablish it over here in an area where I don't have a background. So we'll be using the virtual background for the foreseeable future until these people get out of this house. This is the longest and most miserable construction process I've ever been a part of.
Have you watched the New York Giants? It's pretty long and miserable.
Good point. And speaking of the New York Giants, Nick, as we let people get in here, and I always love filibustering on these lives a little bit because it takes time to get people in here. I got to tweet the link as well. I'll take a look after I turn it over to you. But we're here today to discuss, same week, new news. The Giants signed Russell Wilson, Nick, to a 1-year contract. Again, Jameis 1 year, Russell 1 year. I like that. $14.5 million with the chance to get up to $21.5 million, $10 million of it guaranteed. Very similar structure to the Jameis in the sense that there are incentives baked into this contract. Leads me to believe that Jameis knew this was a possibility when he agreed to sign with the Giants. That's something I want to ask you first. If you think this is something Jameis knew or this is going to catch him by surprise and be difficult for him. But what's, I guess, your first initial reaction before we get into that about the decision to bring Russell Wilson in and Jameis Winston, and now the Giants have 3 quarterbacks signed to the roster?
My initial decision or my initial opinion of this decision is good for the New York Giants. You got to do everything that you can. You got them for what, $10.5 million. We don't know the incentive structure. It's likely that Russell Wilson will be the expected starter, but I'm hoping, Dan, that there is a true competitive atmosphere in training camp. And if Jameis Winston outplays Russell Wilson, he will be the starter. Or if the Giants draft a rookie, he will be. But overall, man, I'm glad that there are 2 competent quarterbacks who are on this roster who can push the ball vertically. That's what we've been asking for. It's what we've been talking about. Russell Wilson isn't the Russell Wilson from 2016, 2017, but I think he did enough last year to at least suggest this is I would say a substantial upgrade over anything that we saw in the Giants quarterback room. Now, I know that's a low bar to set, but you bring him in here, you have him compete with Jameis Winston. You have 2 guys now. So overall, man, at this price, I'm not sour at this, and I'm completely okay with it. And I also believe it gives the Giants more flexibility entering the draft, to where if they're not in love with Shedeur Sanders, you don't need to take him at 3. You're almost guaranteed to get one of those blue chip guys, the players that we think are blue chip, Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter, or you could trade down if you want to, depending on what other teams in that area are looking for. So I just think it gives the Giants more flexibility. So I welcome it. What about you?
There's a lot to talk about when it comes to the draft side of this and what it means for them. So I want to wait on that and just talk about the actual player for now and what this means for the Giants with what they currently have in the quarterback room. And so I guess the only aspect of it that I'm sour on, Nick, is that I would have personally liked to just roll with Jameis Winston and see what happens. I know it's not something the Giants were ever all that interested in. It's clear, given the money they gave him and his track record. And they have an expectation for Russell Wilson, given what they paid him, that he can actually be the player he once was or close to it, or at the very least, the player. And Nick's going to roll through some all 22 film cut-ups of Russell Wilson for those watching on YouTube. The player who he was for at times during that season with the Steelers. Remember, he had a 5-touchdown game deep into that season, won them a game, big game for the Steelers, and in general led them to a winning record and the playoffs. At one point, they were the number 1 seed or close to it, I believe. Now, never past the Chiefs, but close to the number 1 seed, challenging for it, or at least a bye last year. And that's not something Jameis Winston's really ever done in his career. And so this is what the Giants wanted. They want to compete. They don't want to give up on the season. They want to prove to John Mara that, look, what I said, and I'm saying me, Nick, Brian Dable, in that late season presser is true. Look at what happens when I get decent quarterback play, a la Drew Lock, and playing out of his damn mind against the Colts. Look at what can happen. Now, timing of this move, Nick, I think it's interesting as well. We'll
Yeah.
get into that a little bit later, but I think everyone who was there today at the Cam Ward Pro Day, I mean, you read some of what the scouts say, the ball was jumping off of his hand, electric. I mean, and this just goes in addition to the tape. And I love what Cam Ward said at his pro day. He's like, I've been watching a lot of tape and teams are playing a lot of too high. And there is a lot of opportunity for me to hit those hole shots and beat them. And I feel really confident in what I've seen on the tape. And I think what it comes down to, Nick, is it's over. The Tennessee Titans are selecting Cam Ward at number 1 overall. And the Giants, recognizing that, didn't want to put themselves in the same position they were last year. We can't get mad at them now when last year we were so mad at them for being like, we don't really believe in Daniel Jones. It's obvious not only by our actions, but by what we revealed on Hard Knocks. We're just going to do it anyway and pretend like we want to do this and not sign anyone else. Even though we know we can't get Jaden Daniels. We can't get Drake May because they won't trade up with us. And this year, I think they know they can't get Cam Ward. They won't trade down with us. Maybe we don't put ourselves in the same position. All the Giants have done is 1-year investments, Nick. You know, it's not like the past where teams would like panic in free agency. They don't have a quarterback. Let's sign Brock Osweiler to a 3 or 4 year deal. That's not happening here. It's a 1-year deal. There's incentives baked in, and they're giving themselves 2 chances at the quarterback position that ultimately otherwise they didn't last year when they just signed Daniel Jones and Drew Lock. You can argue Drew Lock was a chance. I would disagree with that. I think Jameis Winston and Russ are both much better players and give them a much better chance, especially if succeeding things that we want them to see. Like you said it best, Nick. There were times with Drew Lock, especially beginning of his tenure last year, where he just did not at all look like he can move the offense. So I'm happy with the move for where they're at.
Yeah, same here. And again, it all is with that caveat. It's where the New York Giants are at. This is a desperation thing. It's a sinking ship. You need to find some sort of buoyancy. And Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston provide you some sort of buoyancy. It doesn't mean the ship isn't going to sink at the end of the season. But this is a better situation. We know the quarterback position is the most crucial, the most critical part of any football team. You can argue in any sport, right? Now you have at least 2 guys who have played at a high level, and you can argue the Jameis thing, but I think Jameis is a competent enough player who can at least threaten defenses, as we've said over the last several weeks. And now Russell Wilson comes in here. This is possibly a future Hall of Famer, somebody with the Super Bowl ring, somebody who has, I would say, decent tape last year, albeit it wasn't great, and he definitely floundered down the stretch of the year with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But as you're watching some of these all-22 clips, you can see these outside the numbers throws, man.
Right.
Just picture this with Malik Neighbors. And he doesn't target over the middle of the field too much, but too high, he sees it and the seam's bending. That's going to be Theo Johnson. So I'm happy with it. I'm fine with it for all things considered. This, like, what move could the New York Giants have made given the fact that they brought back Shane and Dable? You know that there's going to be this desperate nature. What move could they have made that was that would give you any sort of like inspiration that the Giants were going to be this great team, right? Like Aaron Rodgers was the one player you and I were talking about a lot. Didn't seem like that was happening. So as the Giants brought in Jameis Winston to ensure that they had at least somebody other than Tommy DeVito, and that likely forced Russell Wilson's hand maybe a little bit as Aaron Rodgers started to ingratiate himself with the Pittsburgh Steelers more. So now Russ comes in here, 10.5, can get up to 21. We have to see what that incentive structure is. We don't know that, but it'll be reported on, I'm sure, in due time. So overall, man, this is fine. And I'm happy the Giants got 2 guys in there who know how to at least run an offense.
Yeah, exactly. They both know how to play the quarterback position. Russ has his limitations as far as what he can do playing the position, given what he sees over the middle of the field, given his height, and a little bit of diminished athleticism at this point. Jameis has his limitations as far as throwing the ball to the other team. But both of them play the position better than anything, quite frankly, the Giants had on their roster by a wide margin last year. A wide margin. You and I both agree with that. And I think it's funny how full circle this thing has come, Nick, because there were a few years ago where the Giants were in their own quarterback hell. You and I were already done with Daniel Jones. It was 2020, 2019, 2020, 2021 range. I think more like 2021 range, I believe, right before he was traded to the Broncos. So that was what, 2021 or 2022. We knew there was no hope with Daniel Jones. And we were discussing and tossing around the idea, you and I, because a rumor had come out of the Giants trading for Russell Wilson. We thought, maybe we'll get on Matty. We'll talk film, Seahawks film, see where he's at still as a player. And ESPN reported that the Giants were one of the teams that explored the trade before Denver made the deal and talked trade. And now it comes full circle. He was brought in last offseason. They made the mistake of not signing him then. And now they try to make up for that mistake. And you could see it here, the stats that Nick's put up here. I mean, Russell Wilson, 8.4 ADOT over Daniel Jones, 6.3% big time throw percentage to 1.9%. Turnover worthy throws less than Jones. And the yards per attempt is just a massive difference. Jones was always toiling away under 7. You got to be at least over 7 to be a startable quarterback. And Russell Wilson's able to do that by throwing the deep ball. That's still something you could see from the tape, Nick. He does a really good job of, specifically outside the numbers. He throws with good touch. He throws with good timing, and the ball comes out pretty clean. He's not an electric thrower. It doesn't jump out of his hands. He doesn't rip tight window throws with velocity, but he's got those, what always worked for him, at least what the Seahawks said, the big hands, and that allows him to grip a football in a certain way and get that ball out there. And you could just see it from watching the tape that he can still throw the football, specifically outside the numbers down the field. And the stats, they back that up, Nick. He was, let's see here. He was on his EPA per drop back, and this is courtesy of Justin Pennick. His EPA per drop back on throws of 20-plus air yards, second best in the entire NFL. It's pretty crazy stuff, especially when you consider his only deep threat was really George Pickens. And George Pickens is a great player. I wouldn't call him the best deep threat in the NFL. He had the 8th most completions of 20-plus air yards in 11 games. Think about that stat, Nick. The 8th most completions in just 11 games. Think about that. If he plays the full 17 last year, what's he going to be? Top 5, top 4 in 20-plus yard completions, maybe better. And what did we say about the 2022 season and about the past Giants? We always used to say, oh my God, Daniel Jones has like 4 of these his whole career, 20-plus yards. Now, that's an exaggeration, but he had very few, and they were dead last even in 2022, his quote-unquote best season, and then dead last in 2023, dead last year. He couldn't even hit the right side of a barn last year when it came to 20-plus yard throws, so that's going to improve. The best completion percentage over expected on 20-plus air yards in the entire league. That shows his accuracy, his ball placement, his timing, and even on air yard throws 10 to 19 yards, Nick, because he could sometimes just step back, make the decision, and hitch and throw it. Number 2 in the league, EPA per drop back. Number 2 in that same regard, 10 to 19 air yards and completion percentage over expected. Now, it's not all great when it comes to Russell Wilson, right? He was 23rd in first and second down EPA. Most importantly for me, Nick, he just took a whole lot of sacks last year. It seems like that aspect of his game is really declining. Can't escape the way he used to, and he holds on to the ball for a long time. And this is courtesy of Doug Analytics, Nick. I thought this one really stood out to me. And this is something that Brian Daboll's really going to have to work on. He's going to have to figure out an offense that Russell can see in his brain and process fast, because the numbers are stark. There is a stark contrast on pass attempts where Russell Wilson had under 2.5 seconds before he threw it. He threw for 74.3% with a 10-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, the 7th best EPA per play, the 8th best completion percentage over expected per play. That's when he gets it out of his hands in under 2.5. He sees it, he recognizes it, he understands it, he knows where to go, and he does it. On all the other plays, over 2.5 seconds to pass, 55.5% completion rate, 6-4 touchdown interception, 33rd of 35 in EPA per play. And even his completion percentage over expected drops to league average there. So he really struggles when he holds on to the football. And that's something the Giants are going to have to figure out in their offense, how to get the ball out of his hands fast.
They give him good Pittsburgh with Arthur Smith, and all throughout his career, he really does a good job processing pre to post. And he has those options like, okay, if this safety does this, that means that I need to do this. And if that doesn't happen, he has that secondary option already in his mind based on what the defense does. He's a quick processor, and you can see that all throughout his quick game and all throughout his passes that aren't just the deep ones outside the numbers that we talk a lot about. So I'm right there with you. And I think the film substantiates your point where he does hold on to the football for 2.5 seconds. It's like, okay, none of the things I planned pre-snap that I thought based on the defense that I thought, even if it changed, was going to materialize based on my film review.
Right.
That did not work out at all. So now I'm holding on to the football, and there's a lot of people around me, and I can't really see that well because I'm 5'10", 5'11", and now I'm hit, and now I'm sacked. And he was sacked, I think 38 to 37 times last year at Pittsburgh. Daniel Jones was sacked 29 times. Russell Wilson had more dropbacks, though, I believe, than Daniel Jones. Yeah, Russell Wilson had 426 dropbacks. Daniel Jones had 209. But yeah, so not a perfect prospect. We know this about Russ. He's like 36 years old. Get a little bit long in the tooth, but all the numbers that you listed before. And if you want to go, I did a deep dive on Russell Wilson a little bit earlier in the offseason. If you go check out Big Blue View, it has a bunch of numbers and a bunch of little GIFs and film clips. You can go check that out. Just type in Nick Falato, Big Blue View on Russell Wilson on the Google machine and you'll find it. But yeah, man, I just can't wait to watch. And I can't wait to maybe a little bit strong. I'm excited, I'll say, to watch this dude with Malik. Whenever it's middle of the field closed, and he confirms it one-on-one. It's going to be 3-by-1 sets. You can put Malik Neighbors as the 3. You could put Malik Neighbors outside the numbers as that X on the backside. You try to isolate him, get that one-on-one coverage. If they cloud, rotate a safety over top of them. Now you have 3 receiver side. You have Wandale underneath. You might see more 2 high defenses if it's Jameis or if it's Russell Wilson. That can help the run game. That will definitely help Wandale Robinson. It just gives the Giants more damn options because, again, they have at least I use this word a lot, damn. They're just competent now in the position room. And competent, that's all we've been asking for. And now if you're watching on YouTube, you're going to see Russell Wilson dime up the New York Giants from this season. He had a couple really nice throws outside the numbers along the sidelines.
Yeah, the third of Pickens against the Giants was absolutely phenomenal at the end of that game. And I think you brought up a really interesting point and a great point. I keep coming back to this, Nick, because look, if he has to hold the football for 2.5, it's exactly what you said, right? He tries to convert something pre-snap. It's not there. His post-snap, it's not there. He doesn't really have a way to play off script. I think that's the reality. It was the reality for Jones. It was the reality for Locke. It wasn't the reality necessarily for Tyrod, but it's been the reality for a lot of Giants quarterbacks. It's the reality for a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL in general. So it's going to be on Dable and Russ together to try to figure out a way to get on the same page and to honestly beat these defensive coordinators early and often. That's going to be, we always talk about it. What does Dable give us as a coach? It's supposed to be route combination. It's supposed to be beating. It's the chess match against the defensive coordinator. This is his year to prove that, right? He has talent now at quarterback, at least more than he's had at any point in his Giants career, as far as I'm concerned. I honestly do believe Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston are a good deal above the level of what Daniel Jones is able to give them. And it's just clear on tape. So he has something to work with. Is it the best in the NFL? No. But to what you said, I thought it was really interesting because we always think about, wow, Malik Neighbors, he was open on the vertical plane. When we think about that, Nick, when do we think about it? We thought about it early in the year, the first 5 games before Andrew Thomas got hurt, and it was happening so often, and Jones just missed him all those times, except for the one he ripped out of the Cleveland D-backs' hands for an interception. And then it happened a little bit at the end with Locke at the Colts game, and then that throw from, what's his name, the kid who had to play, what's the guy's name? The other quarterback who played for the Giants. Tim Boyle. And you look at the numbers, and it's really interesting, Nick. According to FTN Fantasy, Malik Neighbors led the NFL with 30 targets off of go routes last season. No receiver in the NFL had more off of go routes. That's something that's built into the offense. Yeah. And it says he'll likely lead the NFL again this year. Because why not? Because Russell Wilson was 3rd most in the NFL on pass attempts off of go routes. Russell Wilson, if he sees a go route and that safety is far enough away, or in this case, Malik Neighbors is that good enough that he thinks he can beat the safety to the spot, he's going to let it go. And that's something really exciting, dude. We haven't had that in a really long time. I can't even remember the last time we had that.
Last year, Daniel Jones, I think, was 6 of 28 on throws with more than 20 air yards. Russell Wilson was 25 of 48. So that's a 52% completion rate. That's absolutely insane for throws like that. And I think you might have mentioned this before, but we talked about how he had the highest completion percentage, the highest yards per attempt, and the second lowest turnover-worthy play rate on throws that traveled over 20 yards. So he's also, when he does target deep, he's pretty careful with his ball placement. And you've seen this all throughout this highlight reel I'm playing. And again, this is a highlight reel. I'm not suggesting that Russell Wilson is this great quarterback who's always going to do this and not make mistakes. We know the drawbacks to Russell Wilson, but name me a time over the last decade or over the last, I'll say 8 years, 7 years, whatever, where you've seen Giants quarterbacks make throws like this and you could put a highlight reel together. And there were different throws with different touch pacings at different levels of the field, pinpoint accuracy along the sidelines. You're not going to find it because the Giants haven't seen it since Eli.
Yeah, you can't find it. There's nowhere to be found on tape. And it's something that's interesting because every throw looks so labored for the Giants in the vertical game, for the last 6 years.
It's a great way to describe it, Dan.
And for Russell, it looks effortless. Now, I'm not saying Russell Wilson is an amazing quarterback. He's the same guy for the Seahawks. But on this specific area of his game, the vertical throwing, 20-plus air yards, and according to the numbers, 10 to 19 air yards, it is very effortless. It's the opposite of labored, from his release to the ball placement, to the timing, to the way that the ball just travels down the field, the pacing, like you talked about, the touch. It's all just so different than what Daniel Jones put out there. I'm sorry to say that. I know people don't love to hear that, but it's the reality of the situation that the Giants were in and are no longer in. And so I am excited about that aspect of the game. I'm excited about what this means for Neighbors. I'm excited about what this means, to be quite frank, Nick, for Darius Slayton. Yeah, Darius Slayton. Yeah, the guy Darius Slayton who, in the end of the 2023 season, caught a 70-plus touchdown reception in back-to-back games, albeit with Tyrod Taylor. Yeah, I'm interested to see how he'll do with Russell Wilson, who's honestly a better deep ball thrower than Tyrod Taylor. More accurate. Now, I don't know if I fully believe that. I think Tyrod on the deep path was so freaking good, and he was so explosive. That throw to Slayton against the Rams, that thing traveled like 70 yards in the air and dropped right in the upfield shoulder in stride for a touchdown to Slayton. But I think Slayton, everybody's talking about Hyatt, Nick. I'm thinking Slayton, man. I'm thinking Slayton's the one that we really have to consider here. And I love that the vertical concepts that Brian Daboll has run over and over on film, and we've just seen them either not attempted by Jones or just airmailed or too flat or whatever it was, either bad ball placement or just not thrown at all. I'm excited for how Russell Wilson will see this system because there's more vertical elements in this system than the Arthur Smith system, even though Arthur Smith did a good job, I think, at dialing things up to fit his skill set. So hopefully Daboll and him can mind mesh, and hopefully it happens soon.
Hopefully, man. I'm right there with you. I'm currently trying to put something together with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston to compare their skill sets from the 2024 season. But I wanted to ask you this, Dan. With the money that he's getting, now it's not substantial. Like, look, people were saying that Russell Wilson might get like 2 years, $70 million at the top of the offseason. Remember, people were like throwing out like, yeah, he might make like 30. Like, he got 10.5 guaranteed million with 21 million up with incentives, which we don't know yet. So how do you think this will be a true honest competition? Do you think Russ is like 60% leaning towards being that de facto starter, and then Jameis will be 40 or maybe 30, and then the rookie will be 10 if they spend like a day 3 pick on a rookie? How do you think that's gonna materialize?
That's a great question. I think just look, I'll start by saying the report that I know you saw, I brought it up on a previous podcast, of Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson having a little bit of a falling out during the season because Arthur Smith was very strict on Russell Wilson not making checks to the line of scrimmage, not changing things. I want to see how that fits with Brian Daboll to start, to see, before I crown Russell Wilson the guaranteed go-to starting quarterback and he's going to have this, I want to make sure that's in the right place because we remember from our years with Daboll and Jones didn't do much at the line of scrimmage. Jones didn't make a lot of checks. Jones didn't really have much to do. The center made the calls, and he kind of probably just did what Brian Daboll wanted him to do. Arthur Smith and Russell, they didn't maybe have that relationship. I'm curious to see because I think Jameis Winston will kind of do what Brian Daboll wants him to do and read the defense out the way that Brian Daboll wants him to read the defense out. With that said, Nick, I think the Giants are certainly prioritizing trying to win as many games as they possibly can so these two can keep their job. And I'm sure that right now they feel very confident Russell Wilson gives them a better chance to win football games than Jameis Winston. And that's a fair thing to think. So while, I hope they don't repeat the same past mistake they did in 2022 of not giving Tyrod Taylor a fair chance to get actual first-team reps, half of them even against Daniel Jones in 2022. And I still think it capped their ceiling that season personally. While I do believe that, I don't think they're going to learn from that. I think it's going to be Russell Wilson to start camp, Nick, and I think he's going to be getting most of those first-team reps.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I would like to see some first-team reps go towards Jameis, but in today's NFL, there's not that many to go around.
It's a great point.
I think Tyrod, you should have gave Tyrod it. Drew Lock, I was at training camp. Yeah, I was like, I don't know, man. I think you guys messed up on this one, dude. And Daniel Jones also just got off a torn ACL, so he was really trying to get up to speed with everything. But in this case, man, I would like to see just a couple. But I also don't know if like Russell Wilson, like how many first team reps was Russell Wilson conceding to Justin Fields last year, right? And is there an ego like thing involved with that decision making process? I don't know. You have to factor all that in. And I'm not saying that Russ has this massive ego, but we also, as we've discussed on several previous podcasts, there have been rumblings about Russell Wilson and maybe not getting along the best in the locker room or adapting as well in the locker room. But again, that's conjecture. I'm kind of speaking out of my ass, which kind of what you hear through the grapevine, I guess you could say.
Yeah, we don't know. That's just what we hear. I will say this. It was an interesting, unique situation. You brought it up, Nick, but Russell Wilson was dealing with a calf injury last year during training camp. I don't think he got many of the first team reps. I think it was mostly Fields for the vast majority.
I'm saying once the Jet game happened and Russell Wilson started, was it like, hey, Russell Wilson's getting every first team rep, or did they bring Justin, or was Justin just your second team? I think it was probably like that.
Sure, and we don't know for sure, but I think you're right. And like you said, once you get to the regular season, there are far and few reps to go around at that point. It's really preseason training camp where you really need to see what happens there. But I will say this, Nick, in addition to the deep passing, I'm excited that I think we'll finally see some back shoulder throws again for the
Mm.
Giants because I've seen him throughout his tape. He's able, especially outside the numbers, just put the ball out there. That's something Malik Nebers can do. That's something Darius Slayton can do. That's something that I really believe Hyatt could potentially do. And it's something that Daniel Jones didn't do. It's just not part of his game. He didn't throw back shoulder throws, whatever it may be, the timing. And that's one reason to give Russell Wilson more reps and most of the reps in the preseason training camp to get the timing down. And that's not something he even had the opportunity to do with these Steelers receivers. And yet it looked to me, Nick, on tape, like he had great timing with George Pickens and some of these other receivers at moments. And so what does that tell me? It tells me that that's on Russ, right? He's able to do that with limited rapport in training camp with these receivers, limited ability to build that rapport. And I think that has to do with his processing, with his timing outside the numbers specifically, obviously middle of the field. We're not going to get much out of this quarterback from, which sucks, but it is what it is. It's our reality as a fan. We don't use the middle of the field with only great quarterbacks use the middle of the field. So I don't need to worry about that right now, Nick, but maybe giving him those reps, man, it'll improve the timing and the rapport with these receivers.
Hopefully, yeah. Mr. Unlimited, remember that, dude? There's
Yeah,
a lot of
I don't want to think
cheese.
about that.
There's a lot of cheesy stuff, man. Broncos country, let's ride. Remember
And
that
I'll
one?
be honest, Nick, despite Russell Wilson, a lot of people talk to me about this. Shouldn't you be so excited? He was a Wisconsin Badger. That Mr. Unlimited type of thing.
No, well, I'm trying. It was on loop. I forgot to take it
Okay.
off loop.
I like it. But, despite him playing that one season with the Badgers, and I loved him for that year, Nick, it was so exciting. He was a really good college quarterback. He was a much different player. His athleticism played a huge role. Obviously, you've seen it in early seasons with the Seahawks as well. I don't really claim him as a Badger. It was only 1 year, Nick, and I don't really love his personality, to be completely honest. He's not my kind of quarterback that I root for. But I'm rooting for him now. He's on the Giants, and I'm excited about what he can do with neighbors. I'm excited about the back shoulder throws. I'm excited about him, his understanding and how many reps he's had at quarterback, what he can see pre to post snap. Even if he's not the best pre to post snap processor in the NFL, Nick, and he's not like Drew Brees level, right? Like Drew Brees, despite being 6 foot, was able to use the middle of the field because he just knew where everything was at all times. Even if he's not that, he's light years better than Locke and Daniel Jones from a processing standpoint. It's hard to even explain the difference between what he can do from pre to post snap versus Daniel Jones and Drew Lock. And so that really excites me. It's just a professional level quarterback. And go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted to pose this question to you because I think it's an interesting thought experiment. If this was the quarterback room heading into the 2024 season, where do the Giants finish?
We have to assume all injuries still happen, correct?
I guess so, right? I mean,
Even
it's
though a
probably
butterfly
fair, but
effect
I
changes
would like to
everything.
say, like, I mean, just obviously one thing can change the butterfly effect, and maybe the injury doesn't happen. But let's try to remove those injuries because the Giants started pretty poor. They only won those
Sure.
2 games, and what were they, like 2-7 or 2-8 or whatever they started at? So the Giants might win like 5 extra games,
I
possibly.
think they win the Cincinnati game for sure. That was simply because that was the reason they lost that game. Cincinnati put all 11, I was at the game. Cincinnati put all 11 defenders within
Crazy.
10 yards of the line of scrimmage. Jones missed 3 wide open throws, lost the game. The Dallas game, I think they also win that game. Neighbors wide
Washington.
open. Washington, I'm not so sure. I thought Jones played okay in that game. I
The
wouldn't definitely
Washington won though. Well, no, the Giants defense stiffened up and forced a bunch of field goals. The Giants couldn't kick any field goals. That was a coaching error as well. And then how many touchdowns? Did Jones throw 2 touchdowns in that game?
Jones was fine in that game. It wasn't great, but he was fine. And I really think the big ones for me are Dallas, where Jones missed all those deep throws, and then
Mm,
Cincinnati, where Jones was just completely destroyed. And I would say Carolina for sure. They win that game without Jones. Jones was unbelievably bad in that game, if we can remember.
yeah.
Airmailing neighbors, all the things he did in that game, the flea flicker, just the Dable's last, grip with this guy. Like, I just can't take it anymore. You saw Dable. It's like, I can't do it anymore, guys. I can't do it. Why is this all you gave me, Joe Shane? Do I have to go to Locke now or DeVito? And he did ultimately. But I would say those 3 for sure. I'd have to look back to see if I felt like any others.
Either way, I don't think the team was winning 8 games, right? Like they were probably
Probably not.
winning a few more games. Now, with what we have, where are we going with it? You have an
Right.
improved secondary, Javon Holland, you have Paulson Adebo, you have whatever the Giants are going to do with this third overall pick 34. You have a lot of assets coming in. It's not unreasonable to posit that the Giants could possibly compete for the playoffs with these two quarterbacks if these two quarterbacks play up to their potential and the Giants stay healthy. I'm not sitting here saying that I think that's going to happen because I still remain a bit pessimistic. I don't know if I trust the Giants regime. I don't know if I trust the Giants' ability to draft and develop. I don't know if I trust this coaching staff, but what I do know is that these two, as we've already said, to belabor the point, definitely give you a much better chance. And that's what all that Shane and Dable are attempting to do right now. And fan base might, not be completely aligned with that because I think it's better if the Giants were to bottom out than win 7 games. So let's hope that this Giants team actually can compete and be respectable and possibly go to the playoffs. I don't know if that's based in reality though.
It's so, first of all, let's think about it like this. I'll say they have a much better, and it's why Russell Wilson will start. They have a much better chance to win with Russ over Jameis as far as winning games, and that's all this regime needs to do to keep their job. You can see it in the graphic you put up, Nick, right? 6.3 big time throw percentage to 3.8. Russell, 1.6 turnover worthy throw percentage versus 5.2. That's the real difference. And still, despite it, Russell Wilson had more yards per attempt. So those are big time numbers that really tell a story. Now, I'll say this. If the defense comes together in ways that we think are possible, Nick, say they draft Travis Hunter or say they draft Abdul Carter at 3 overall, either of those two players with the additions they made on defense, with the help of the health of Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns, who, by the way, Brian Burns played hurt the whole year, with the depth they added on the defensive line, with the assumption that at 34 they can get another interior defensive lineman potentially, with the assumption that Kayvon Thibodeau maybe takes another step, possibly. We'll see. Is that defense that much worse than the Steelers' defense last year? It's worse, for sure. But there's Dexter Lawrence. Like, it's not that much worse. At times, the Giants' defense looked phenomenal last year, dude. They shut down Burrow. They shut down Dak, with the exception of that one CeeDee Lamb play where Banks blew the coverage. And now say you add a Travis Hunter to play zone and make big plays and, pick 6-7 passes a year for the Giants at minimum, probably. And you also add a D lineman at 34 who should probably go in round 1, but he's there at 34 because of the depth of the class. I'm not ruling it out. And then you go to the flip side of the ball. Russell Wilson has Neighbors instead of Pickens. I think that's a win. The O-line looked good for the Giants until they got hurt last year. I think that's at least even with the Steelers offered.
Yeah, it's just that infrastructure, right?
It's the infrastructure. Right.
Yeah.
Tomlin has a winning culture. Does Dable have that? And it's just the coaching too. Like, Dable no longer may be the guy we thought was the coach that gave us an advantage, like we did, at least according to us in 2022.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you look though, just to do that comparison, like TJ Watt, he's phenomenal. Dexter Lawrence, phenomenal. But the Giants, do they have a Cam Hayward? Do they have that veteran presence on the defensive line to be tough in the trenches? Sure. This is why, and I'm sure the Giants will address this in the draft. Like they must, that you need to still add a defensive lineman and maybe 2 defensive linemen. You need to beef up these trenches. You can't be getting bitched against rushing teams who can just run the football down your throat, man. Like, that cannot happen. I'm just happy that hopefully, I'm knocking on some wood right now, this isn't going to be a 3 and out type of offense, and where the defense, it's the first half and they've already played over 45 snaps. Like, I don't want to see that anymore.
No, I'm with you on that. And I forgot to say this at the beginning of the show, but I'm going to say it now. Unfortunately, 33 minutes in for me, at least, unfortunately. Please like and subscribe. Please hit the like button right now if you're watching this video. Just do us a favor. Just immediately hit that like button. It's really important for us. And type a comment in as well. And one more thing, I didn't mention this, but if you want to get a question in, type a question in. We're taking super chat questions at the end of the show. So I haven't mentioned this, but just for those who are new to the show or haven't listened or are joining us now, if you ever want to get a question in, just type it into the super chat and we will get it at the end of the show. But yeah, Nick, it's going to be interesting. I want to turn the page before we get to doing all that to what this means for the number 3 overall pick, what this means for the drafts. I think the first thing we established is the Giants are well aware that, once again, just like last year when they couldn't trade up for Jaden Daniels or Drake May, they will not be trading up for Cam Ward. Cam Ward will go to the Titans at number 1 overall. It's a good as done deal, and they won't have that opportunity again. But the question becomes, why do they make this move, right? Why did they sign both Russ and Jameis with DeVito already signed earlier this offseason? Is it to give them flexibility? Is it to give them a position, Nick, where, and this is the first thing I want to ask you before we get to the more specifics of it, Is it just to give them the advantage of teams don't know where they're at? They're not feeling like the Giants are as desperate as they might have been, because now the Giants have actual players signed at the quarterback position, and they could quite frankly, and more than theoretically, go into the season with just this quarterback room and probably be fine if their assumption is we'll try to win with this room and we'll go back to the next draft to get a quarterback.
I think it certainly has elements of that. Like that could be correct, but I also think it's, and Ed Valentine brought this up, the Giants leveraged Jameis Winston against Russell Wilson. Like you went out and you signed Jameis Winston, and now Russell Wilson is sitting there like, I could still go to New York, and it's probably not going to be at too much money, man, because they have an option right now. I could still go there. What are my other options if Pittsburgh's not going to have me back, if I want to have a realistic chance at being a starting quarterback? So the Giants, I think, were kind of crossing their T's and dotting their I's, being like, all right, Russell's not going to come to us. He's waiting to see. Aaron Rodgers isn't coming to us. He's waiting to see. We're going to sign Jameis Winston. If Jameis Winston's going to be, and then that will at least give us that first building block, that foundational piece to our quarterback room. And we're still interested in Russell Wilson, but we can bring Russell Wilson in here and we can give him starter type money, but not overpay Russell Wilson. And I think maybe that was something that happened. Like there was like maybe a little bit of a, I don't want to say jostling, but there was a little bit of money and money involved in this situation where Jameis Winston was, hey, we're bringing Jameis Winston in. Russell Wilson, he's going to come in and maybe he wanted more money, and then the Giants were able to leverage it against, be like, well, where else are you going to go, Russ? Where else are you going to go? You can come here. And maybe that had to do with it. I'm not 100% certain. And now I'm just looking at it and I'm saying, we thought Shedeur Sanders at 3. I don't know if that's going to be the case, right? Like that seems more unlikely unless the Giants are in love with this player. I'm not going to fully rule it out, but it just gives you, since we're transitioning this conversation to the draft, it just provides you an opportunity to get Abdul Carter or Hunter, because Cam Ward is more than likely going to go number 1 overall, and the Giants are sitting there at 3. And you could also now trade out of this pick if you want to be like, hey, I know this team loves Hunter. I know this team loves this guy. Come up and get him. Give us 3rd round picks, maybe a 2nd round, whatever. You can get your guy, and it'll really be that building block for your team. And now the Giants can go and draft whatever they want. It just, I love the flexibility, man. That's what I love the most about, I think, this move and how it impacts the draft. It just makes the Giant a little bit less desperate to go quarterback at 3. I still think they're going to address a quarterback within their first 3 or 4 picks.
Yeah, and it makes them less desperate if, say, the Giants want to trade up for a quarterback at any point. Now teams don't have the same kind of leverage they had, which is you better do it, because otherwise what the hell are you going to do? You have literally nothing on this roster. Now they have 2 players who they could be comfortable with, or at least tell teams they're comfortable with. As far as what does it mean for the Sanders situation at 3, it's really interesting that this move comes the same day as Adam Schefter's report, Nick, from a few hours earlier, which is that, everything I know is that the Giants are all over Shedeur Sanders, and Shedeur Sanders is very likely to go to the Giants at number 3 overall if he doesn't go number 2 overall. And that comes just hours before they make the decision to sign Russell Wilson. I don't necessarily think this takes them out of the market, because we also heard today reports suggesting from Josina Anderson that the Browns are willing to trade out of 2 overall, and they believe that they might be moving in the direction of Abdul Carter at number 2 overall, in which case Shedeur Sanders would be on the board for the Giants if they're patient and they don't trade back. Would they still take him? I think they would still take Shedeur Sanders if they believe Shedeur Sanders is their guy, and if all the time they spent at Colorado was for him. But there's another prospect at Colorado, and they spent a lot of time at Colorado. His name's Travis Hunter. He's one of the best prospects, I think, that I've seen in a long time when you consider what he's able to do on offense and defense. It's very unique. It's Shohei Ohtani-esque in that sense of, what can you give me? What can you give a football team? Well, I can give you snaps on offense and defense, and I can give you playmaking ability as a zone coverage corner, or the best wide receiver tape in the whole class, if you're being honest about the situation, and a skill set that, if you want to play coverage shaded to Malik Neighbors and you want to design your whole defensive game plan to stop Malik Neighbors, well, guess what? I'm going to put Travis Hunter somewhere on this offense, and you better be careful, because he can make a play no matter where you give him the ball.
All of these options are available to the Giants, right? But I don't know, man. I just think Dable and Shane are so desperate to win football games right now, to retain their job, to show a certain just to show anything to John Mayer, to be like, look, you don't fire us, right? And if you add a Hunter or a Carter to this team, man, that's just bolstering either their edge room or their cornerback / wide receiver room. And really, when it comes to Hunter, maximizing Jameis Winston and maximizing Russell Wilson. But a
Right.
lot of this depends, and this is what it really all depends on with this specific conversation, is how much do you love Shedeur Sanders, and what's the difference in your love for Shedeur Sanders to Jackson Dart and to Tyler Shuck and to Jalen Milroe and to these other quarterbacks that you can get at 34 or in the 60s or even a little bit later? Like, what's the gap between Shedeur and those players? And if it's a tight gap, you can go BPA at 3 and just make that roster beautiful and then bring in somebody a little bit later on. And even if it's like a Will Howard later on as like a developmental type of quarterback with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston already there. It really just depends on their love for Shedeur. What I like about it, though, is I don't know if Shane and Dable have to talk themselves into a quarterback at 3 now as much as I thought maybe they previously would if it was just Jameis Winston and like a Joe Flacco, because I do think Russell Wilson offers more than a Joe Flacco at this point of their career, even though he's long in the tooth too at 36.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And I love the point you made, because I think a lot of people look at this type of thing as in a certain linear way that I don't look at it as. Like, some people just look at it like, here are the rankings. It's like fantasy football. Shedeur Sanders is quarterback 2. You take him at 3. Or, Tyler Shuck is quarterback 4. Or whoever is your quarterback 3, you take him here, X, Y, Z. But the Giants may not have a huge gap between Sanders and some of these other quarterbacks in their projection for what their upside can be if they reach their potential within this system, with this coaching staff, with this team, and with this franchise. That may not be the case. Just because his name is floated as worth the 3rd overall pick or worth the 2nd overall pick or the 2nd best quarterback in this class doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. I think with Ward, you could see there are traits that could lead to explosive, creative offense in the NFL. Yeah. And that's interesting. And I think it's clear why a team might view him, or a lot of teams might view him, as well above the rest of the board. The rest of the guys, I'm not as sold that there's a clear stark contract between Sanders and some of these older quarterbacks. As far as projection goes, as far as upside goes, as far as what am I banking on, what am I hoping happens with Sanders in a best case scenario at the NFL level, or what am I hoping happens with Shuck or Milroe in a best case scenario, or even guys like Will Howard who show levels of anticipation, even McCourt, all these quarterbacks that I'm not necessarily sold because are that big of a gap between them, because I'm not so necessarily sold there's this huge guaranteed gap between Sanders and the rest of these quarterbacks. And what if the Giants aren't either, Nick? Then what happens? Then the Giants now have the flexibility to wait until round 3 or wait until round 2 or trade up at any point to get one of these guys. And they're exhausting their resources, Nick, right? Like, we talked all off season about, oh my God, they spent so much time going to Sanders's games at Colorado. Meanwhile, Travis Hunter was there. But what about now? Today, they didn't show a big contingent at Cam Ward's pro day. What does that mean? I think it means the obvious. They're done. They're out on Ward. They don't think it's possible. But they did show contingents elsewhere. They had Joe Shane, the general manager of the team, and Shea Tierney, the quarterback's coach, at the Louisville pro day, most likely there for Tyler Shuck. There are other guys in Louisville who might get drafted. They were there to watch Tyler Shuck throw a football live. They also, on the same day, had multiple people, Mike Kafka being one of them, Nick, at the Texas Pro Day. Who's there? There's a lot of good players. Matthew Golden, a bunch of good players in Texas. But there's also Quinn Ewers. And they might want to see how Quinn Ewers throws a football and how he could potentially develop behind their system. If you have Jameis and you have Russ, Nick, you can freely draft a developmental quarterback like a Ewers or like a Shuck in round 3 or 4 and understand that I don't have no rush to play these guys. I can sit them for a full year. Well, it will mean one thing. They have to cut DeVito, but let's be honest. I don't really care about that. I know you don't really either, and he's got no real upside in the NFL. But I like the idea that having 2 quarterbacks, veterans, gives them the opportunity to draft a developmental guy in the 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, I think they were actually at the Louisville Pro Day to see Ja'Cory Brooks.
Yeah, he's actually a good player.
I know, Ja'Cory Brooks. So I remember him when he was at Alabama because he was like he was a 5-star. And I liked him because he blocked his ass off, which is and I loved him at Alabama for that reason. And then he transferred to Louisville. But you're right. They were there for Tyler Shuck, and they should do their due diligence on all this. And this could also be like, look, we're out on Cam Ward, like we said. They have their mind probably made up with Shedeur. Maybe they do love Shedeur, but maybe it's not like, hey, we're definitely going with him at 3. We're going to see all of our options. So let's cross our T's and dot our I's, to use that phrase again, and go out and look at everybody, man. They'll probably go to Ole Miss. They'll do all this, get as much information on these quarterbacks. And the Giants may be looking to target said quarterbacks 34 down the line.
Sure.
So It's interesting, man. It's a better situation right now. And I like the fact that, and we brought this up in the past, Joe Shane has acknowledged that there's an issue on the roster. So he's going to pour assets into that issue and make sure that that issue is rectified come the next season. I just wish those issues weren't as prevalent, because it seems like every season there is an issue with one specific position group or another. Last year it was the offensive line. The previous year it was the tight ends and the run defense. So and then every offseason, what does he do? He just freaking signs like 2 or 3 dudes into that. We saw this also with the secondary. Secondary was a problem last year. Got Javon Holland, got Paulson Adebo. Hopefully we get another year of development from Tyler Nubin and Drew Phillips. But yeah, man, he's putting in the work right now, Joe Shane, to try to save his job and put a respectable roster out there.
Well, when you're a team that doesn't draft well, you have to be reactionary, I think, in what you do to try to, like you said, pour assets into trying to fix a problem.
And that's where it gets interesting too with the whole don't draft well, because one of the players we're talking about is possibly a cornerback, but he can also play wide receiver, and Travis Hunter. And it's like, if you bring in Hunter, you have a Debo. What happens to Tay Banks? And should we be relying on Tay Banks to be has he earned the right to be a starter, even though he was just drafted 2 years ago? Like, that whole conversation might happen if the Giants ultimately go with Hunter.
Yeah, it's a great conversation that will be had. And I ultimately think Hunter is a better wide receiver than corner, and I don't really think it's very close personally, though I would be happy
I think it's phenomenal at both. I think he's the best cornerback and the best wide receiver in this draft class.
I have to watch more of him versus John. Is it Johnson, the kid from Michigan? I'm blanking on his name.
Yeah, Will Johnson. So I've seen Will Johnson play, but not on all 22. So I should probably.
The 2023 Johnson before his injured season last year. That to me was what I look for more in a corner. Now, Hunter is a very good corner, and I want to make that clear. I just think he's the best receiver in the class on film. As far as corner goes, I'm intrigued by what he can do. He's going to be amazing at the catch point. He's really good at recognition in zone. I think he understands pass concepts really well. I don't think he stays in phase the way I saw how the kid Johnson from Michigan stay in phase.
I got to get some 2023 film on Will Johnson.
He was unbelievable in 2023. He played injured last year. Whatever, not the point. Point being, the Giants could figure out where the hell they want to play him, or play him at both, because he did play both at Colorado and played phenomenal. It's not going to be as easy to do that in the NFL, but there could be packages in both scenarios where you don't have to do it. And I like the point you brought up. The Giants have run into a lot of problems in the past, Nick, when they refuse to draft over a player because they drafted another player, or because they draft that player and they want to, make him work to make the GM right. Matt Parrott with Dave Gettleman, among other situations. I hope that's not the case with Deonte Banks and Joe Shane. You just can't do that. When talent is available, you have to take it.
Yeah, and I hope the desperation actually leads them to, be like, hey, we made a mistake here. They should know best. They're in the building. But maybe also a new defensive backs coach can get into Deonte Banks and help smooth over whatever issues he seemed to have with Jerome Henderson.
Yeah, who knows? I want to say one more thing on the point you made about pouring the assets. It is pouring assets, but I kind of love the way Joe Shane's done this. He didn't give any multi-year deals out to Russ, to Jameis. He's done this as cheap as possible with a lot of incentive-laden deals. Like, he really found a way to get bargains on both of these deals. You could say 21.5 is a lot for Russ, but that's only if he meets every incentive. I would think this deal is going to be more along the lines of the $14-15 million a year range, which is insanely cheap for a quarterback. And Jameis at 2 years 8 is wildly cheap for a quarterback, even a backup quarterback if he is that. It's something that is interesting about how Shane went about this. And one final thing on the Sanders thing with the draft, Nick. Regardless of what happens, say the Giants do love Shedeur Sanders and they want to take him in this draft at 3 overall. I love that by doing this, they signal to the NFL, we're not desperate for Sanders. We're not going to just trade you to move from 3 to 2 like the Bears did for Trubisky with the Niners a few drafts ago. We're not that team. We're not going to be your Huckleberry. Like, we will just sit at 3. We don't think you're taking him at 2 if they believe that. And we still love him. We want him. But here's how we make you think that we don't care about him. We'll sign 2 quarterbacks in free agency, one to a 21.5 point deal that just started a bunch of games for a team last year, took him to the playoffs. And we're going to signal every time. Everything we signify to you is we don't really care. We'll do whatever happens, and we're fine taking Hunter or Carter. And that could lead to the Giants into a really good situation if they do actually love Sanders. It could lead them to not having to burn capital to go from 3 to 2 for Shedeur Sanders.
Can't burn capital, man. Just can't. And the Giants aren't really necessarily in that position to do so. So no. I don't want to be trading up, or I don't want any general manager to, again, take advantage of the fact that John Mara bringing these guys back was like, we are desperate. These guys need to win. So, moves like this can at least assuage that.
Yeah, without a doubt. Anything else before we get to some super chat questions?
No, I think we hit it all, man. This is a better situation than what we've been accustomed to, but still it's not perfect. But all things considered, what the hell did you expect?
I know they're doing the best they can, and at the very least, we got much better deep passing game than we've had in years. Better anticipation, throws outside the numbers, and throws 10 to 20 yards, air yards down the field, and some back shoulder completions, maybe, Nick.
Dude, don't even get me started. Dylan Manning 3, thank you so much. Said credit where credit is due. Joe is doing a pretty good job. Love the content as always. Drop a like for the best Giants pod out there. Dylan Manning, thank you so much, my friend.
Dylan, let me ask you something. Thank you for the comment and thank you for the super chat donation. Are you entering the draft anytime soon with the last name Manning? I don't know if you did that just for fun, but we will take you. We will take a Manning at any point on this roster. So just let us know in the comments.
Thank you again. Joe Winograd, thank you so much. Says, so how does this change our draft strategy? Do we trade down or take BPA, best player available, i.e., Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter? Joe, Dan, and I spent like about the last 20 minutes discussing this exact thing. And again, I just like the fact, and I tend to always think that I like the fact that they have the flexibility and that they can do what's best for the team. They're not pigeonholed or desperate as they already are, obviously, to draft somebody or talk a player, like talk themselves into selecting a player that maybe they wouldn't have gone with if they weren't so damn desperate.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. We haven't talked much, though, Nick, on the trade down scenario. We talked about BPA. It's going to be interesting. So I love the idea in theory of trading down. Like, say the Giants did this because there are many reasons Giants could have made these two moves, but say the reason they made this was not because they think Sanders is going to. It's because they don't believe Sanders is worth investing the third overall pick. And say that's the case with the Giants right now. In that scenario, there is an opportunity potentially for them to trade 3 to a team that wants Sanders and move back, get that team's 2026 first, which could potentially be used on a quarterback, or to trade up for a quarterback and more assets in the middle of this draft, likely in the top 100 of this draft, Nick. And that's an area where everyone wants to be in this draft. This draft, that's exact. You want to be picks 34 through 100 in this draft. That's where you're going to find starters or at least key role players for the future of the NFL in this specific class. That's possible. The Giants are going to do that. It'll be interesting, Nick, because it will be passing up on what I believe is an opportunity that only a few teams have in this draft to take a blue chip player. I don't believe there are that many blue chips in this class for me, for what I consider to be a blue chip. The Giants, by all accounts, will have an opportunity to draft a blue chip player in this class. Cam Ward goes 1. I don't know what the Browns will do. I ultimately think they're going to take Abdul Carter, number 2. And then the Giants can take Hunter, or if the Browns go Sanders, or they trade it to a team that wants Sanders, the Giants can take Hunter or Carter in that scenario. So it's tough. Do you pass up on one of the only blue chips and basically repeat history? Now, it's not always going to work out this way, but when the Giants did it in 2021, they lost out on Rashawn Slater and Micah Parsons, and all they got back for it was Evan Neal and Kadarius Toney. So it doesn't always work out. It's always a pie in the sky, grass is greener thing with trading back. Every trade back in the history, every proposed trade back in the history of me being a fan of this team has always looked good on paper, Nick. It's always been like, yeah, I love that. Look at what we get. We get a 2026 one. We get this and that and this. But you got to draft well for that to matter. And Joe Schoen's track record as far as draft picks has not been great, Nick. But you know what his track record has been good? When he has a clear and obvious blue chip like Malik Neighbors. And so when he did that, he was able to hit on the guy immediately. That's probably going to be the case with Hunter or Carter if they take them. So I don't know necessarily if I want to take that risk, Nick, of giving up one of those blue chips.
I don't really want to do that, but at least it's an option, right?
It's an option.
So, I mean, if somebody was in love with one of those two players, but adding any blue chip to this roster is going to obviously make this roster much better. And the Giants could use any blue chip because how many do they have in your opinion right now?
We've done this before.
Wade Neighbors, Dexter.
I consider Burns. So Neighbors,
Andrew
Burns,
Thomas,
Dax,
Brian
Thomas.
Burns. That's probably
the
it.
First guy you said?
Andrew Thomas, Dexter Lawrence, Malik Neighbors, and Brian Burns.
Sure. I mean, you could make the case. No, you can't really make the case. I think that's it for as far as blue chip goes.
Yes. Yeah.
Should have been Gavon. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, he's not though. I mean, he's fine, but
it's not. It's not.
Yeah. Michael Riley. Michael, thank you so much. Says, please, no Sanders at 3. Don't waste a premium pick on a quarterback in a bad years for quarterbacks. Get Hunter or Carter and draft a decent developmental quarterback later.
Yeah, I mean, that's an opinion that a lot of Giants fans have. Ultimately, Michael, I'm not there yet with making any decision on this, but I think I might be in this camp. Look, I don't want to discredit Sanders. I said earlier that the Giants may see not as much of a gap between him and other quarterbacks. And what I mean by that is just projecting. Like, sure, his college stats were great, but when you're looking at him as a prospect, he's a smaller quarterback with not a lot of athleticism. The ball doesn't jump out of his hands. So he has to really win with his mind. He has to win with quarterbacking and playing the position well, which I think he does a good job of at Colorado. And I think he does, he's been taught well. He's got really good upper body mechanics. He's got a really clean, compact throwing motion, and he gets the ball out clean a lot. And that's something that can't be said about a lot of quarterback prospects. But ultimately, is that enough to separate yourself at the NFL level? Because I think Sanders has probably one of the better floors of these prospects, but I'm not looking for a floor at quarterback. And if I don't find the ceiling fast with him, I'm probably not interested in using the 3rd overall pick, only because it means you lose one of the 2 blue chips in this class. If it was 8th overall or 9th overall or 10th overall, I'll get more on board maybe, because it's the idea of like, all right, well, we're not missing a blue chip anyway with this pick. Let's go for it. And there are some prospects in this class, Nick, who actually have elite traits. Like, I know it's not a quarterback trait, quote unquote, but Jalen Milroe is the best, most electric running quarterback since Lamar, and has aspects of his game that are better than Lamar as a runner. That's an elite trait that translates to the NFL level. And by the way, he throws a damn good deep ball. Like, it has touch, and he gets the ball out there with a lot of arm talent. He doesn't do a lot of things well. He doesn't play the position well right now, and he misses a lot in the short areas. That's something that may preclude him from ever being quarterback. But there's no guarantee Shedeur Sanders or even Cam Ward is going to be starting in the NFL for 10 years. That's not how this thing works. It just doesn't work like that. Only Joe Burrow and Andrew Luck are basically the only prospects you could have guaranteed it with out of the last class. You thought Lawrence was there, and you couldn't even guarantee him either, right? So there's no guarantees ever when it comes to this stuff. And so that's why I think, and then a guy like Shuck is interesting to me because, yeah, he's 25, turning 26 and has the injury history, but man, the ball jumps out of his hand and he makes throws from different arm angles, and he has actual athleticism and frame that you want at the position. So maybe they develop a player like him. And then finally, Ewers is a player that we've soured on, Nick, but the ball does jump out of his hand. Like, you could see it when he connects, and when he's on, he looks like he can actually throw a football that could actually beat NFL coverages, not just college coverages, right? And that's the key. You have to project how they'll play at the NFL level. It's not easy.
Tuto, our friend Tuto Azuri, thank you so much, man. Said much love and respect to Big Nick and Dan and all diehard Giant fans across the pond. Greetings from our entire rugby club in Italy. And we say something in Italian that I'm not going to try to.
Come on, you know what that is. Forget about it.
Forget about it.
Forget about it, bro. I've been rewatching.
So I was gonna. You rewatch. I was gonna say fudge. I was gonna like try to do it in an Italian dialect. No. Yeah, no, that's why. No, forget about it. Yeah, Tuto, you're the man. You say you're rewatching Sopranos?
I'm rewatching Sopranos right now.
Where are you at right now?
Perfect part of the series. I'm not going to bring this up, but I just think of that. I'm just toxic masculine. I'm just thinking that every time I see it. I'm not bringing that up, but it's just always something I'll think about now for the rest of my life when watching that show. Inside joke. But point being, I'm on season 2. And I'm in the thick of season 2 right now. We just had the storyline that I've always hated and felt so sad about with Meadows' friend, who Tony, the guy is a degenerate gambler, loses all his money, and Tony gives Meadow the kid's car as if like Meadow's not going to notice it's the kid's car. And then it's like the Richie Aprile stuff is heating up, and I love the Richie Aprile stuff. So it's just like everything's going really well right now in that show. Christopher, I'm spoiling stuff, and I don't care. It's a 15-year-old show. You got to watch it. And if you haven't already, fast forward through this. Give you a little pause, but Christopher just got shot. So there's a lot of good stuff going on in the show right now.
Yeah, it doesn't give away too much though. It's all right. Yeah,
it's all right. I don't care either way.
Oh, oof. Yeah, you're reckless with that. I watched Game of Thrones with Dan. Dan was just like giving me all these. Like,
I did not.
Did this happen yet? And I was
like, whoa, not true at all. I didn't spoil anything big for that show for you at all.
Tuto also says, Nick, please suit me up in Giants gear this season, and I'll promise you the win be something one any quarterback, offensive lines, or ball carriers walk off the field on their own power, guaranteed. Not 100% sure, Tuto, but you know what? I can get you Giants gear, and you're the man, and I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Get 374 says, if the Giants have their choice between Carter and Hunter, who are you picking? I know I need to watch the tape, but just pick. Thanks for everything.
So I watched the tape. Put us on the spot, and you have to decide right now, Nick.
Yeah. No, I
mean, of both these guys.
Anybody who's listened to the podcast long enough knows like where I'm going with this. So I'm going.
That's where.
Yeah, Hunter. Yeah. No, I've been a big Hunter guy for a while.
I think it's Hunter. It's Hunter for me too.
Love Carter though.
I love Carter, and I love how freaky he could be for this defense, how cool our defense could be. But a prospect like Hunter just doesn't come around very often. And what really makes it the pick for me is watching his receiver tape. I fucking love his receiver tape, dude.
Dude, he's
I think
insane.
it's unbelievable. And I think I said I was too big of a coward to mention it on Twitter a week or two ago when I said it, but I'll mention it now. It's shades of Justin Jefferson. It is shades of Justin Jefferson in his fluidity and the movement skills and the way that he unlocks those hips. It's like, boom, he can get his body in position to make any kind of catch at any point in the field and create separation in any area of the field. He stacks DBs vertically. Like, he does everything you want. And playing corner, I think, helps him play receiver. I think he sees the game from a corner's, perspective, and that allows him to create separation in spots and find areas of the field where he can settle down and catch the football.
And think about the jersey sales.
Oh yeah, the jersey sales. Well, that's what John Mayer's thinking about. Saquon was our most popular player. It's gonna be hard.
Yo, that was nice, dude. That was nice.
Yeah,
that was good. Andrew Gill, Andrew, thank you so much. Said need a day 1 or day 2 pick on the offensive line, whether you trade down in the first or the top of the second. Andrew Thomas is always injured, and it derails the season.
Yeah, Andrew, I love it in an ideal world, but you can't just pick a position and pick a position. So the only way I'm using a day 1 or day 2 pick on offensive line is if the pick is right and that they're the best value on the board, or at least up to par and even. And I'll say this, as far as tackles go, I don't feel great about a tackle being there on day 2 that I'm going to want over.
What if the Giants traded down because somebody wanted to trade up so desperately to get Hunter, and then they drafted like Membu
Campbell
or something, or
Campbell,
or like Campbell
too. Yeah. I saw something today that said like they filtered out all the actual real snaps, of real pass blocking snaps, and Campbell was like the only one who actually had to pass block. The rest of those guys are like pass blocking and RPO and all sorts of bullshit that means nothing. Now they are still good bets based on athleticism, so I don't want to rule out any player. But yeah, it's something that's open, Nick. I think once I get out of the blue chip range of this class, I'm open to just about any position and any player. And that's kind of why I don't really want to trade out of the blue chip range in this class.
Yeah.
You get quickly, you run out of steam quickly when you get down to like even 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in this class. It's not a very strong class up top.
Yeah, and you're taking project players like the kid from Texas A&M. And yeah, no, I'm right there with you. John Kirk, like John says, excited about the defense, getting Carter or Hunter at 3 and a defensive tackle at 34. Very encouraging. And if Hunter plays a third down package, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, third downs or more, man. Like, telling you, this wide receiver tape is phenomenal, and having him and Neighbors on the field at the same time is really difficult to defend.
Dude, think about Neighbors as the backside X 3x1 with Hunter as the number 3, or you could just plot that Wandale is the number 2 and Darius Slayton outside. That's difficult to defend, dude.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or just like, what did Sam Darnold resurrect his career doing? Basically, and at least from my eyes, it was the defense is trying to take away Justin Jefferson. Here's Addison backside in a one-on-one. Let's just keep hitting that over and over and over again. Yeah. That's Hunter. Hunter will not be defended in those one-on-ones. I just watched it all over watching Sanders tape.
Think about how weak the cornerback 2 is around the league.
Right. No one's going to defend Travis Hunter one-on-one. And then he has no safety help either. And just good luck. You're on an island against Travis Hunter because we have to allocate all these resources to Malik Neighbors.
I don't want to put this down in pen, but if the Giants were to do that and then say, you know what, Hunter, you're going to be a wide receiver, it's in the conversation for the best duo in the league.
It has to be,
right? Like immediately, which is crazy.
Wouldn't think that though. I don't think a lot of people are like, since he plays both positions and he's viewed mostly by most people believe, oh, he'll just play corner in the NFL. I don't know that a lot of people are up to date or at least think that Hunter's in the conversation as like the best receiver in this class, even though I think he's like clearly the best receiver in this class.
No, it's because everyone thinks he'll be pigeonholed as a corner, but you watch his tape, it's obvious. Like, I like the kid from Arizona, but
I like Burden and I like Golden. Yeah. They're both similar type ideas to Hunter, but they don't move like him. No. They don't attack the football in the air like him.
The hips and the attacking and the aggressive nature at the catch point are just insane.
Yeah.
I watched so much Shedeur Sanders already, and just watching Shedeur throw the football, and it was wise for Shedeur to do it. I'm not chastising Shedeur. Throw the football up to your best player, and you just see 12 just like hover in the air and somehow come down with the football, and you're like, how did he do that?
And it's a good point because it is wise of Shedeur. We always ask Jones to do that, right? Just give him a chance, just put it up there. And that worked a lot at the college level. I'm not sure some of those hanging balls are going to work always in the NFL, but I guess maybe
hanging balls can get you.
Yeah, if you're just throwing the ball up there, hanging balls can get you. Nice. But as far as Hunter goes, it's just obvious on the tape. So yeah.
Mark Logan, hey, thank you so much. Mark Logan, round of applause, everybody, for Mark. Thank you so much
Thank you, Mark.
for
Wow,
that
Mark, thank you so
super
much.
chat. That's
Crazy.
beautiful. And let's see what Mark had to say. Thank you so much again. Wilson, Winston, or your buddy down the street are much different than Daniel Jones. Wow, he really had something to say. I now have a reason to renew my Sunday ticket, and that makes me happy. Go Big Blue. Absolutely love that, Mark. Thank you
Yeah,
again.
Mark, thank you so much. Crazy, crazy, massive super chat donation to us. Thank you for that. That really helps us grow the show, and it just helps in general. Shows we're appreciated. And you know where I'm at with you, Mark. I'm right there with you. I think a lot of, how bad DJ was kind of pushed under the rug by some Giants fans, but he really didn't play the position well pre to post snap, and will have a much better advantage with somebody who actually can process a defense like Wilson can. And honestly, Winston, Winston throws a lot of picks, Nick, but you watch the tape and he's like moving through progressions, right? He's coming to backside. He's doing all sorts of things. He's throwing with anticipation. Like, actually knows how to play the position despite throwing a lot of picks.
Absolutely. And we have our last super chat here, unless some trickle in, and it is from a Titans fan. Kick it to the King Productions.
No.
He says, Titans fan here. Thank you for your service, Drew Lock, with 2 emojis. Hey, good for you guys. Enjoy Cam Ward. We're doing our thing over here in New York and New Jersey. But yeah, thanks for donating and watching the show, my friend.
Yeah, and good for you guys. Cam Ward will be an exciting player for you guys. I like him with Callahan in that system.
Yeah,
I
man.
like him with the offensive line and Callahan's dad running that offensive line, the moves they've made to add to the O-line. Like, they don't have great receivers, I don't think, yet, Nick. I'm trying to think. I guess they did sign Calvin Ridley for a pretty big deal, though he's like weirdly old. For
He's
some
got to
of
be
this,
now. He's like about 31, maybe.
I don't know if he's just 31. He might be 29, 30 range, but he can still separate, and they'll probably add talent at that position.
They need to add talent at that position. I just pulled it up.
Yeah.
Look, they have Tajee Spears and Tony Pollard. That's a solid 1-2 at running back.
Yeah.
Then you have Calvin Ridley, Treylon Burks, and their third wide receiver is Van Jefferson. Like, it's a little rough.
I think they lost Westbrook Akinin, who was actually pretty decent. I think he's a free agent. He might come back. But yeah.
No, he signed somewhere.
Okay, he did. Yeah. All right. So yeah, good for you. You got Cam Ward. Enjoy. It's going to be fun. He's an electric player, creative, explosive arm. Really interesting. But the Giants, we are not going in a different direction than Cam Ward. And so that's how it is. All right, Nick, is that all we have for today?
That is all we have from Super Chats. I hope everyone enjoyed us discussing Russell Wilson, man. We got Russell Wilson and Jameis in the building now.
Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to everybody who hit the like button. If you haven't already, please click that like button. It really helps us grow. Leave a comment too after the video will really help us as well to juice the algorithm, even if you commented during it. If you can go back in, click it and leave a comment, that will really help us. Thank you so much. Keep it locked and loaded. We'll be back when the next thing happens, or to do some draft content as well coming up. So have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.